Today started out like a very slow news day, then it all happened at once. Cash for clunkers went away and then came back. We talked to auto dealers to find out how they're doing and why they like it. A state lawmaker says the Public Regulation Commission probably should not regulate a solar electricity company with one client, the city of Santa Fe, the same way it regulates a giant like Public Service Company of New Mexico, the big electric company. And we'll learn about that strange airplane that's going to lift tourists closer to suborbital space right from the New Mexico Spaceport in about a year's time. In fact, that's coming up right here. Well, it could happen as early as sometime next year, the first large-scale tourist service into suborbital space. And it'll happen in southern New Mexico at the facility named Spaceport America. Spaceport Director Steve Landine is returning from an air show where there was a demonstration of the aircraft that will deliver the spaceship into a position that it can go into orbit. Steve Landine joins us on the line. You say you actually saw this aircraft?
Absolutely. It was a beautiful show and wonderful to see it coming on into Oshkosh.
Now, that plane is what is going to lift the space vehicle into suborbit. Is that right?
That's correct. This is a 140-foot wingspan, all-carbon composite aircraft that in its center body will carry the spaceship that will be unveiled on December 7th of this year out at Mojave.
I've got to tell you, it's an absurd-looking aircraft. It's two cockpits, two planes joined together at the wingtips.
That's right. It's very unique and very special purpose design. The reason why it has that wide midsection is so that it can handle not just this spaceship, but any payload, such as a rocket to take light satellites to space. It's really the workhorse system to carry things to very high altitude and then launch them from an air launch type system, which has very strong environmental benefits by taking that rocket burn up into the atmosphere very high level, as well as fuel efficiency, so that getting something to orbit from a higher altitude has a tremendously lower cost than the traditional large rockets that we see launched from the Cape and elsewhere.
Now, the Branson organization, Virgin Galactic, invented this airplane, did they?
Well, they didn't invent it. They saw Burt Rutan and Skilled Composites out at Mojave in 2004, when that wonderful day when Paul Allen and Burt had gotten together to win the $10 million Ansari X Prize. And at that moment, Richard Branson and the Virgin Group said, we want to become the first space line and have private astronauts and really open space for the public versus what it's always been, a government entity driven element. So what that did on that day, they created this space line, and it's really Burt Rutan and his team at Scaled Composites Design that came up with this very unique airplane that is flying wonderfully. It was the 16th test flight to get to Oshkosh, and things are performing beautifully.
Now, of course, this is radio. You can't see the plane, but we'll have pictures on our website, ksfr.org. But it appeers to be two airplanes joined together at the wings. There are two cockpits. Are there two pilots?
Well, they do have two pilots on board, but it's not what you'd think. Both pilots are in the right boom. So if you picture these two cabins, so to speak, separated by probably about 52 to 55 feet apart, that leaves you this wide open center body. The actual pilots are in that right boom, that right cabin, and they fly the vehicle. So it is totally different than a traditional airline where you have the cabin right down the center with the wings expanding out from that center body.
So when the pilot lands, he's really looking ahead and off to his left to make sure the left side of the plane is doing what the right side of the plane is doing.
Yeah, they may need to put a new line of stripes on the runway, because this one will be about 26 and a half feet off center of the runway.
Yeah, well, it's very strange looking, and it will be flying. You say it's going to preview in December at your spaceport?
Actually, it'll be out in Mojave, and that's where they're going to attach the spaceship airplane. So this strange-looking aircraft will then be made complete by having this spaceship, very large spaceship, slung underneath that center between those two cabins, and then it will go out and start doing its testing before the end of the year.
Now, what about next year when activities start at the spaceport in New Mexico?
Things are going to be happening very, very quickly. We expect the runway to be complete by next August, and obviously over in Mojave they'll be developing and progressing with their flight test program, with both continuing with the airplane as well as the spaceship. And they'll be doing drop tests first, and the spaceship will glide back to Earth from 50,000 feet, and then they'll start doing some rocket motor tests after they drop the spaceship, and then they'll do development flights into space long before the public goes. The FAA will ensure to every degree possible that this is a safe and licensable vehicle to take people up to suborbital space.
And it is that aircraft, the White Knight 2, that will take the spaceship into suborbit.
It is the White Knight 2 that will take the spaceship to 50,000 feet, and then it will drop the spaceship. And at about 48,000 feet, they will ignite the rocket motor in just a spaceship alone, which will carry 6 passengers and 2 pilots up to suborbital space, where they'll get to experience 4 to 5 minutes of weightlessness looking back at the planet.
Hard to believe this is finally going to happen in New Mexico.
Yeah, it's all coming in. And the big announcement that was at the show is that Abar Investment Group out of Abu Dhabi has invested in the Virgin Group. And by investing in the Virgin Group, this is a very major vote of confidence for commercial space industry that this is real, and it has very, very long legs to it. And they're investing $280 million initially, and then an additional $100 million for the satellite launching capability of the White Knight 2 vehicle. So this gives another funding source to develop further technology that will take, from a military perspective and other, light satellites to space. That expands our business model very quickly now, because that was an unfunded activity that just became funded yesterday.
Well, Steve Landine, very exciting indeed. Thanks very much, and we'll be talking to you in New Mexico.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
And I will not accept a press pass ticket on your flight, even if it were to be offered to me, Steve Landine.